The Compassion Project is now to the forefront of the NMBI Statement of Strategy 23 to 25 and in the business plan. The ambitious plans which Marie-Therese will outline on behalf of the Fitness to Practice team demonstrates the commitments of the whole team to strive for the process to be more compassionate for everyone involved. Thank you, and over to Marie-Therese.
Thank you very much, Anya, and thank you to everyone who's joined us today. As Orla and Anya said, we're delighted to have so many with us today. But just bear with me for 1 second while I pull up my screen, and if you could give me a thumbs up if you can now see my presentation. Perfect. Okay, great. So my name is Marie-Therese Hackett. I know many of you on the call here today, but for those that don't know me, I took up the post last year as the Inquiry's legal advisor within the Fitness to Practice department. So the Compassion Project, as Anya mentioned, was launched in 2020 by the INMB board. It began with a review of the complaints handling process at that time. And as Anya said, it was Martin Higgins, his report, which was prepared in November 2021, entitled Towards a More Compassionate Complaints Process, Do Quicker, Do Smarter, Explain Better. The report was informed by a series of conversations that took place with key stakeholders, representatives and other regulators. Clear themes emerged from the feedback that was received by those who took part. They all shared concerns that the process is long, complex, adversarial, stressful, and for quite a number of participants, very distressing. The report made a range of recommendations on the changes that could be made to adopt a more compassionate approach for the well-being of all participants. So as Anya said, the Fitness to Practice department has embraced those recommendations and has already implemented many changes. And I'd like to talk you through some of those changes and the work that is currently being done to make the process quicker, smarter, and explaining better. So under quicker, there has been a real change that has come as a result of recent legislative changes in how cases can be disposed of at a much earlier stage. So it was the Regulated Professions, the Health and Social Care Amendment Act 2020 that provided for a number of amendments in relation to fitness to practice work. And that included changes at PPP stage, which is the preliminary proceedings, and the fitness to practice inquiry stage and the post-inquiry stages. So the INMB have now implemented many of those amendments, and the PPP stage now, the CEO is able to deem a complaint frivolous, vexatious, or if it's not been made in good faith, and it can be closed off at that stage without referral to the PPC. One of the key amendments was in relation to disposal of cases at an earlier stage by means of undertakings and/or consents. This was brought in at both PPC and inquiry stages. So at the PPC stage, they can consider offering undertakings and can conclude the case where such undertakings are accepted. This means the number of cases proceeding beyond the PPP stage has been vastly reduced, and at inquiry stage, undertakings and consents can now be accepted by the inquiry subcommittee, so they're no longer subject to the agreement of the board. So in effect, these amendments have and will continue to shorten the process, and it provides certainty of outcome for those registrants at an earlier stage. We've done a lot of work in terms of reducing the inquiry timelines, and some of that has come from the legislative changes, which allows us now to have a 3-person subcommittee. Previously, it had been 5, and obviously with 3 person now attending, it has increased the availability of committee members, so we can hold more inquiries during the same period. Housekeeping improvements, we have taken steps to improve the running of inquiries, and we have just recently introduced a new process for scheduling of inquiries, and this will now be dealt with in-house by the Secretariat team and contacting the parties directly to fix the inquiry date at the earliest opportunity. And we've taken steps to engage more with registrants and their representatives in advance of inquiries to narrow the issues in dispute and to consider if witness statements can be agreed in advance of the inquiry to avoid the necessity of calling witnesses and having them wait so they can be stood down in advance, avoiding any unnecessary disruption to them and their lives. We have increased the number of panel firms acting on behalf of the CEO, and that has increased now to 4. And that will speed up the case preparation and investigation stage, so the cases can be listed for inquiry within a shorter time frame from referral. We're then looking at the steps that we've taken in relation to the smarter steps. So we have introduced a new case management system, and that was launched this year. And that was under our former director, Colin O'Leary, and that has really improved our case efficiency and document management, and moving towards a paperless system and reducing waste and duplication of tasks. Internally, we have reviewed how we instruct our experts and developed a new process to instruct them at an earlier stage. So we're reducing the inquiry preparation time and enabling us to make earlier decisions on whether or not a case will actually have sufficient evidence to be run to inquiry. We are working on developing feedback mechanisms with all regulators. It's so important that we receive good feedback, and when I say good feedback, I mean the mechanism for capturing that, to understand the participants' experience in the process. We understand that her experience will erode confidence, trust and engagement. So we are working on ways that we can capture that at the end of our process, so that we can make further improvement and build on confidence and engagement from all participants involved. We are developing our learning from FTP activity across the department. We are going to use data review more to capture the status of FTP activity across the department, which is going to inform our planning on resources and increase the transparency and visibility of our work across the organisation and externally. We're working on ways to develop internal feedback loops with other departments. So we want to share our information more internally to prevent future issues arising, and really as a preventative measure. So if I can give you just one very simple example of how we look to do this. If we are noticing a lot of cases being referred, say, on the grounds of medicine mismanagement at a particular healthcare setting, we would want to work with our education department and look at ways that we could possibly go out and provide training to that particular setting, to their staff, to their students, to avoid the repeat of those issues coming through at an earlier stage. We're also going to be working on our publications, and similar to the State of the Register that was published by the NMBI last year, we are going to develop a similar document for FTP activity. Then looking at ways that we can explain better, and this is a huge part of the work that we're doing internally within the team. We are trying to really understand what we need to do better. Communication is such a vital component at all stages in the process, and it's really key that we're getting that right and that we are adopting a compassionate approach from the outset. So what we want to do is simplify our correspondence, and we want to do this in a way that obviously respects the fact that we are in a formal legal process, and there are certain things that need formality and precision in how we send our correspondence. But we need to reflect the fact that as a layperson, it may be difficult to understand those legal concepts, and it also even more difficult for someone whose first language isn't English. So all members of the FTP team will be undertaking a plain English course, and that's going to help us so that we can roll out updating our correspondence, our information booklets, our policies and our web content. Going forward, we will make plain English the default in all of our correspondence. And we also want to work very closely with our panel firms to develop this in the correspondence that they're sending on behalf of the CEO, and really to develop empathetic correspondence and approach to reduce the stress levels for all those involved. We want to ensure that people involved in our processes are kept up to date regularly, and we appreciate that the timely and effective communication is really key to maintaining trust and engagement in the process. So at all stages, we want to ensure that the registrants, complainants and the witnesses can clearly understand what to expect from the process, the supports that are available, what's going to happen to them and when, how long is something going to take, what the NMBI might need from them or what we need them to do, and when we make a decision to explain that to them. They seem like really basic things, but it's so important that we are communicating that and communicating it regularly to keep everyone involved in the process, to keep them engaged. So we are also going to, at the point of referral, when a case is referred from PPC onto the inquiry, we're going to contact all registrants and other representatives to give them a designated point of contact within the NMBI Fitness to Practice department. So at any time, they can contact us with any issues or concerns about the process. And we will liaise with panel friends, obviously, throughout, but it's just so that they always know that they have someone here that they can contact. We're going to be really getting our faces out there more, so we're going to be doing a lot more work in terms of engagement with our stakeholders, and that starts, it's starting now. We have training happening this month with members of the FTP team going out to do training events at the request of 3 hospitals across Dublin, and going forward these will become much more regular events. And we just want to say that we are happy to facilitate any healthcare or educational setting with training events to increase the understanding of our work. The roadshow will, I think it's September, we're going to be rolling out, and the FTP team will be attending that along with the other departments from NMBI. And we'll be wanting to meet with as many registrants as possible and students to really explain the work of FTP. The goal of all of this training and attendance more regularly at the roadshows is really to foster a better understanding of our work and to raise more awareness on local resolution of concerns, to avoid the necessity of concerns and complaints being raised where they can be resolved in the first instance. So we're also going to be holding more regular stakeholder meetings, and that's something that's already happening, and we have a summer seminar lined up later this month. And we're going to be hosting the Compassion Project seminar with the CEO of panel firms along with trade union representatives. Our guest speaker, Professor Stephen Austin, he is widely regarded and has written many research papers on kindness in regulation. So we really want to try and bring this to the forefront of the panel firms and trade unions and open that dialogue with them and work collaboratively with them on this project. So we're going to be having that later this month. And we're also working on our web presence. So we are currently updating our web content. We know that the website can often be the first point of contact for someone just to go on and see what advices are there for them about how to make a complaint, how that complaint is going to be handled. So we are reviewing it. We're trying to simplify the language, and we're going to be uploading more explanatory videos. We have one now uploaded in relation to undertaking some consents at PPC stage. So that's available now to be viewed on the website, and going forward there'll be more about different stages in the FTP process. We have updated our Who Can Help page, and that includes now a long list of other organisations that can provide additional support and assistance to anyone who's involved in the process. We hope that, alongside the emotional support service, which we are launching today along with CIC, is going to assist and provide more emotional support to everyone involved. So to registrants, to complainants, to witnesses, to NMBI staff and to committee members who may be affected by the process. So this will include counselling support and a dedicated 24/7 phone line to all of those involved in the process. So that leads me on now to introducing CIC, and we are delighted today to have with us Toby Hardwick and Hazel Brassey from CIC, and they're going to launch this service for us. So I am going to hand over to Toby, and at this point just like to thank you all once again for taking the time to join us today, and just keep in touch with us. If there's anything today that I've covered that you want to provide us with feedback on, comments, but more, we just want to share the experience. So any insights or learnings that you can provide us, and we can work together on this with other regulators, the unions, representatives. We'd really love to hear from you. So that email address is there, and we'd invite you all to contact us at any stage. And thank you, and over to you, Toby.
Thank you very much, Mary, and good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for your time today, and also thanks for the opportunity of presenting the emotional support service to such a wide group. We're really excited about launching the service to NMBI, and it's great to have so many stakeholders involved hearing about it. My name is Toby Hardwick. I'm Head of Business Development at CIC Wellbeing. And I'm joined by my colleague Hazel Grazzi, who is our International Contracts Manager and also the Relationship Manager for NMBI. I'm going to hand over to Hazel in a bit, just to effectively talk through what the service is, how it works, how people access it, and the range of support that's available within the service. But before I do that, I thought it might be helpful to give you a bit of a background as to who we are as an organisation and where we've come from, just to give you some colour and context in terms of our experience within the field. Thank you very much, Orla. So here's a whistle-stop tour of CIC Wellbeing's history. We were established around about 35 years ago. So we were one of the first EAP providers in Europe, and we were the first EAP provider to be audited against the Employee Assistance Professional Association's guidelines. When we started, we were part of the Westminster Pastoral Foundation, so we were owned by the WPF. We're no longer part of that organisation, but it's relevant still in the sense that WPF's focus is very much on delivering counselling with a high clinical standard, with a keen sense of clinical governance and clinical management. And that is an approach that is in our DNA and in our origin, and still applies today in terms of the way that we deliver our counselling service. In terms of the kind of core of what we do, it is employee assistance programs, emotional support services and counselling services generally. Sitting outside of that, we also do provide some additional services where it's required. So we can provide critical incident support to individuals that have been impacted by an event, whatever that might be. We can offer mediation support, training support and so on. But we also offer a range of standalone programs that sit outside of the core EAP service and emotional support service. So those include trauma counselling programs. We offer peer support programs, peer support network programs, and consultancy to organisations on mental wellbeing. So those could have sit under our specialist psychological services. We provide a service to around about 400 customer organisations. That covers a really wide range of sectors, both public and private, and also a really wide range of organisations in terms of size as well. So the smallest organisation that we work with is just a few employees, 3-4 employees, and the largest is over 10,000 employees. So so a really wide range of experience there. We have had pretty much 35 years experience of delivering globally as well. So provide support to a number of organisations in in countries all over the world, around about 78 different countries, and also organisations that have a presence in lots of different countries. So for example, we work with Reuters News Agency and the Foreign Commonwealth Development Office in the UK. And obviously what we also do is provide similar types of services to a number of other regulatory bodies as well. So so we're really pleased to be working with NMBI on this service. So with that, I'll hand over to Hazel for you to talk through the service to NMBI. Thanks, Hazel.
Wonderful, thank you, Toby. So just to echo what Toby said, real pleasure to have some of your time today and meet such a wide range of stakeholders in this, and to be part of the overall strategy with your Compassion project. We're really pleased to be working with NMBI. So I'm Hazel Grazzi, as Toby mentioned. I'm International Contracts Manager for CIC. So my main role in the relationship here is being the main point of contact with an NMBI around how the service is running and how we're performing, and providing some kind of regular updates and reporting on that. So I wanted to provide a very kind of visual overview here of the key features of the emotional support service. So starting with the emotional support telephone line, which is a completely free and confidential telephone line open to nurses, midwives, witnesses and complainants and any NMBI employee who may be involved with a fitness to practice case, whereby they can speak to a trained counsellor about any aspect of the process and how it's impacting upon them. Further to that contact with our counsellor team, we will make an assessment around whether a referral to structured counselling might be required. And thirdly, our counsellor team will also offer some information services as appropriate. And then finally, with the support from myself and working closely with NMBI, we'll be looking at utilisation of the service and de-identified themes and trends in the kind of issues and effects that callers are presenting with. So just to provide a little bit more around the emotional support care lines, the phone line aspect of the service. So we recognise that alongside an MVI that the fitness to practice procedure can be quite a worrisome, stressful time for anyone involved. So to have a listening ear from someone who is trained to help is absolutely invaluable in terms of helping the individual structure and organise their thoughts and help them understand the next step that they need to take and accessing that support in that moment. So in terms of that emotional in the moment support, it doesn't necessarily mean that if somebody calls us, they're guaranteed to be referred on to structured counselling. It may just mean that they need to speak to a trained professional several times in that particular day. So that's really key to this as well, is that kind of, it's almost seen as a singular session of counselling without needing to go on to a committed structured course. And in that way as well, it's enabling registrants to engage effectively with the fitness to practice process in the way of helping them structure their feelings and their thoughts. So it's available via self-referral by direct phone line or by email. And as Marie mentioned earlier, it's available 24/7, 365 days a year. So we really are working around the clock to provide that emotional support to registrants. All of our calls are handled by our qualified counsellor team. So they will provide that support, be it emotional, psychological, or practical. And they'll also make an assessment as they do so as to whether a referral to counselling might be needed. And as I mentioned previously, there's also the element of signposting to additional resources or additional information services if needed. So I'm getting a little bit of background noise. If everyone could just pop on mute, that would be great. Just on the final point on the last slide there, please.
Sorry, Hazel, I've just muted everyone there, so that should stop.
Thank you. Yeah, so just to the point on the last slide, with regards to the oversight by our case manager team. Our case manager team are on hand to support our emotional support care line team with any more complex cases that might come through or cases that are presenting with increased risk. So they're there to support where kind of the clinical decision making needs to be implemented quickly. So in terms of the structured counselling, so if the assessment indicates that a referral to counselling would be beneficial for the individual, CIC provide what we call solution-focused brief therapy. So that's a 6-session time-limited therapy model, and it's delivered through our network of counsellors. As Toby mentioned, we've got a large global network. It's around about 1,500 affiliates globally. So if somebody is requiring face-to-face counselling sessions in Ireland, we can support with matching them to a suitable counsellor in Ireland. We've got good coverage across the patch. That being said, the other therapy formats would be telephone or video, which are also popular choices as well, convenient for lots of people. And just to give you a kind of insight into, the clinical quality and clinical standard, as Toby's mentioned, which is in the DNA and in our foundations, when we are recruiting for counsellors to join our network of affiliates, they do require thorough training and qualifications, and that always includes an accreditation with the BACP or the IACP, so British Association for Counselling and Psychotherapies, always get a bit tongue-tied with that one, and the Irish Association for Counselling and Psychotherapies. So all of our clinical works takes place in accordance with those ethical frameworks and in accordance with the EAPA standards as well. So that's the Employee Assistance Programme Association standards. So, I've mentioned the time-limited 6-session model that's on offer through this service. However, we do recognise that 6 sessions might not be appropriate for every individual. So there could be scenarios in which an individual is presenting with the need for longer term therapy, in which case we would refer to a more suitable service. So that might be the individual's GP, who then can onward refer to other therapy services provided in Ireland as well, or it might be looking at private long-term therapy options. But certainly through this service, we are supporting with the 6-session brief focus therapy model. So just to kind of walk you through the process of accessing therapy and what that would look like for a registrant witness or complainant. So first of all, the individual would make contact with us via email or telephone. And they would state that they're calling in association with NMBI, and that enables us to make an assessment as to whether they're eligible for the service. They will speak to one of our counsellor within the emotional support care line team, and they'll get that access to that emotional. Apologies, I don't know if you can hear that, but my fire alarm is going off. There we go, it stopped now. It's highly distracting. Apologies. So yeah, when they call us, they'll get that access to the in the moment support, as well as that kind of conversational assessment being made by our counsellor. That assessment is then reviewed by the clinical team to determine if the 6-session model would be appropriate, or whether actually we need to make a different recommendation. So it's really looking at what's clinically best for that individual. If the counselling is clinically appropriate, then a member of our team will aim to match the individual with a suitable counsellor within 5 working days. So there's sometimes things we take into consideration in terms of that match and looking for somebody, but perhaps there's a specific language need, perhaps we're looking at a specific location, and perhaps there's kind of protected characteristics that the individual would like to match upon. So all of that is factored into who we match the individual with. Once we've found a suitable counsellor, we'll then give the individual the counsellor's contact details so that they can proactively reach out and arrange their first appointment with their counsellor. So it's really putting the power in their hands as to initiating their counselling journey. So another element to the service that we are providing for NMBI is offering individuals support to legal information on legal issues. So we recognise that witnesses, registrants, complainants should also contact their trade unions for any legal matters in relation to the fitness to practice process. But we are also offering an informational, non-advice giving service through our Irish partner. So things that they might be able to support with would include family law, insolvency, personal injury, health and safety, and welfare benefits. So very much kind of domestic legal matters. And as mentioned, it's information only, so it's a non-advice advice giving service. and it's limited to one call with an advisor per legal issue per year. Further to that, our emotional support team, as I mentioned, will signpost to other information and advocacy services. So Marie's mentioned NMBI website is all up to date with the Who Can Help page. So we will signpost where relevant to other services like Migrant Nurses, Crime Victims Helpline, Citizen Information Board. So we've got a long list of other services that will point people in the direction of where appropriate. I think this is my last slide, but it's just to make the group aware of how to find out about CIC, what we're up to in terms of our newsletters and our webinars. So our Global Specialist Services team develop and deliver monthly webinars on topical issues in mental well-being. So what we deliver is very much driven by what we're seeing globally amongst the presenting issues of all our customer organisations across different sectors. And it provides us the chance to offer a space for people to learn about a topic with clinicians, with experts, to ask questions, to share experiences. So if you'd like to know about our previously recorded webinars or upcoming webinars, there's a link shared within this page, but essentially www.cicwellbeing.com/calendar, and you can see all of our webinar recordings there. A fantastic resource. It's free to access for anyone that wants to register. So if you'd like to join in and listen to the kind of topics we're delivering in the next few months, please do. And then further to that, we release a monthly newsletter. And this contains webinar notifications, topical articles, social media posts, and just keeping you up to date really on everything we're doing. So you can subscribe to that for free if you just pop onto our website. It's at the very bottom of the page, and you'll see subscribe now. So super easy to do if you want to keep up to date with us. So yeah, again, thank you for your time today. It's been wonderful to see lots of faces, and hope to cross paths with some of you in the near future.
Thank you very much, Hazel, and to the CIC team. That just concludes our launch today. Apologies that we don't really have time for questions, but as Mary-Trace said, we're open anytime if anyone has any particular queries, and we can refer them on to CIC. There's no problem. So thank you very much, and for taking the time to join us today. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.